Hey there, welcome. I am Pseudo. This is Box of Nails podcast number 6 for Guild Wars 2 Balance podcast. RSQ is in Korea. So, in his stead, I have someone else who plays PvP and is better than me. His name is Sea Monster. Would you like to say hi?
Yo, what's up?
You may recognize him from our Harvest Temple runs. He is the one who doesn't mess up mechanics ever. It's pretty good. Um, so I'm gonna just to open. We got some balance notes to go through here. I'm asking you the same thing I asked RSQ, and my weird opener question is: if you could selfishly change one thing in this game, and I don't mean balance, I mean like one aspect of it, like what would you have in this game? You can think of aspects from other games. What would you have? Like one thing. I'll give you an example. Mine was I really want a stat blacksmith for World versus World where you get a certain number of like stat points, and even if it's like 20% lower than 4 stat gear, you can basically build out your custom stats for your gear because there's only certain ones that are selectable right now.
I think in terms of features, I want player housing. I'm a big player housing person, but in terms of like things to actually affect combat, I'd honestly just remove stuff. I prefer when things are more standardized and less like just like stat lines and runes and I
Really?
don't know. I don't even really enjoy that side of buildcraft that much. I do enjoy that it exists, but I think I'd prefer if it wasn't there.
Interesting. So would you remove runes entirely or just fewer options like there are in PvP?
I think I'd want to see what it's like with no runes or sigils at all, but I'd also be interested in just a smaller, more standardized set of them where like your rune is your role, essentially.
Interesting. Does that draw influence from another game that you're thinking of, or is that just like would you replace them with anything?
Yeah, not really. I mean, I think for me, like Guild Wars, at least in terms of MMOs, it has the best combat system I've ever played with. So there's
Oh
not
yeah.
really anything outside of it that I enjoy more.
Hmm. Interesting. So that just comes from like interesting. That's like the opposite of what I like. It'll be perfect for the podcast. I'm serious. I love people like who don't just share all my opinion on everything. Um, So we got some notes here. In case you didn't know, we have a what I turns out is actually a mini balance patch coming out on May 2nd. And then the big one is like June 27th, correct me if I'm wrong, I think. Um, which is exciting that it looks like they're going to do more systems reworks like give Deadeye quickness support build, which will be interesting if nothing else. It's nice that they're continuing with that. Oh, the warrior alacrity when right? That'll never happen, but we'll see. Anyway, let's pull up this wonderful patch notes here and go through. We'll start at the top with their big message, and then we'll go down as it were. I like to go in reverse order. So, welcome preview from May 2nd. Balance update is a smaller update focused on addressing some outliers in the current state of the game. While we wrap up the next major profession balance update, which is interesting, for June 27th. Yeah, not even July, June. So that's like a month away after this one. That's nuts. Well, I guess about 2 months. As always, goal of previewing these changes, gather your feedback before the goes live. We'll be following the conversation, making further adjustments as needed. Cal, CMC Cohen. Awesome. So, just in an effort of preserving my insanity, let's go to the bottom and go in reverse order. Also because it starts with Warrior. And I don't want to just make this the Warrior podcast about Warrior for Warriors forever. So, you played a little PvP. Do you have anything things you were expecting to see in this before we go dive into it that like probably really weren't in here?
Yeah, I was definitely expecting like a huge scrapper nerf and probably like hitting Weaver and maybe even Tempest.
Yeah, it was really weird. The only scrapper nerf that I've seen didn't even isn't even in this patch. It was in like the one that was a week ago or this week or something, where they really didn't touch its damage or grenade kit. They just basically made it so you can't have maximum duration stealth just from sneak gyro anymore. Um, they downed it. It was like 6 pulses for 1.5 each, and then down to 5 for 1 each. So it's just like a lot of stealth as opposed to like infinity. It's very weird. Anyway, I don't even know what I'm supposed to be doing in this event. Good thing I'm a mechanist making AFK. So this is kind of a common theme of this whirlwind attack thing. They fixed like all the whirl finishers in the game, but this was brought up in a couple other podcasts. Like Muckluck brought it up when he was talking about his thing. They didn't actually say whether or not the bug that affected whirl finishers was making them whirl more or less than they were supposed to, which is really strange. And the few times I've tried to build something insane on Warrior that utilizes the like 15 whirl finisher X5 thing, it seems to do all 15 hits. So I'm just gonna assume that like the ones that were fixed were not whirling enough. But other than that, I really have no input on that. I'm cool that they're fixing bugs, right? So obviously, everyone knows I'm a big proponent of Bladesworn. Hopefully, everyone's at least watched the first 2 minutes of that How to Fix Bladesworn and What's Wrong with It video I did. If not, go watch it, or go watch the short. It's pretty funny. But just the TLDR is, I don't really think that the things they're fixing on Bladesworn, I would rather fix them, or see them fix the jank, and I know Guy would rather them fix the jank. And by jank, I mean things that just, like, you try to use and they just inconsistently work. Like Dragon Trigger 2 and 3, rather than them actually doing balance updates to this class. Because they're basically... Bladesworn doesn't really suffer from even balance. Like, it's missing a couple things, but right now it's really unplayable because, like, the F2 feels like crap to play because it's not kneel and you can move to cancel it, and then, like, Dragon Trigger 2 and 3 miss all the time. So, if they just fix that stuff, it would be a lot more playable, but instead... what they're doing is they're taking Tactical Reload, which is arguably the best button on Bladesworn, decreasing its cooldown from 60 to 40 seconds in PvP and World vs. World, which is a huge buff. It's 30 in PvE. That's enormous, and you already really can't play the class without that button. I mean, granted, there's meta for everything, but, like, you're throwing if you don't take Tactical Reload. And they're just making that better, and they're taking Unshakable Mountain, and they're making that better, which it already was basically the best trait in PvP and World vs. World. They're not decreasing the cast time of Artillery Shalash. They're making it basically charge its ammo faster, and this was already your best, one of your best buttons on Gunsaber. It just takes forever to cast. This is cool. These top two changes I like, though, and then, we'll go to things that I have no perspective on. Dragon Spike Mine, they're actually giving it a stun break because it's going to have a 25 second cooldown instead of a 35, and 35 is pretty unusable. Comparatively, in my opinion. But I did some thinking, and I realized that Dragon Spike, like, they don't want to give Bladesworn stability, when you're charging your Dragon Trigger. I don't think, because it had stability, and they kind of took that away, and it had stability on, like, Flow Stabilizer, and they took that away initially. But they want to give you, like, an out, right? Like I was CC'd while I'm doing my Dragon Trigger, I can do something button. And I think Dragon Spike Mine is, like, what they're trying to do. Because basically, if you get CC'd while you're in Dragon Trigger, you can press Dragon Spike Mine, it stun breaks you, it moves you back a little bit, and then you can re-enter Dragon Trigger because it refreshes the cooldown of it. Granted, you need Flow to be able to do that, and I still think the evade frame on what is it? Dragon Spike Mine is way too short, but, it's a step. Gunstinger, they're giving it ammunition, which is the 4 skill on pistol. I should bring this up by the wiki, actually, instead of this notes they have. But they're giving pistol 4 ammunition, and if you didn't know, the pistol 4 recharges the pistol 5, and every time you use the last charge of anything, you get 1,000 barrier. So, like, all of this is going to make Bladesworn extremely tanky. It's not going to make it any less CC'able, really, but it's going to make it, like, very tanky. As you're just going to have infinity barrier. I have spoilers, I have a discipline build that uses this for World vs. World. Once these changes, if these changes go through, that I'm very excited to share with people, but we'll see what's what. Do you have anything to add? I know you don't play Warrior at all.
Yeah, no, I don't know anything about Warrior.
Well, I'll just keep going through these. Attackers Insight, they're downing the Power, Precision, Ferocity, basically the passive buff that Spellbreakers get from CCing, so it's going to do a little bit less damage in PvP and World vs. World. Nothing really to note there other than this, if it specs into CC heavy builds, it'll do a little bit less damage with them. And then we have some, both World versus, like, really game mode wide changes for Berserker. It's nice that they're giving this attention after, like, 6 years. Arc Divider is going to do infinity damage, and according to Guy, our resident warrior expert in our raid or strike mission, you're basically just going to sit in Greatsword for PvE if this goes through, which is interesting, but they're buffing Arc Divider, which is nice. Always a fun skill. Buffing Decapitate, which is a fun skill. And then the big one, they're changing Smash Brawler to give 15% increased critical strike chance while in Berserk mode. And unlike, I thought this originally the Grandmaster that stun breaks you better, or like triggers your Berserk stuff when you go in and out of Berserk mode. It's not. It's actually a minor trait. So this is a huge buff for a minor trait, actually. The only problem is, or down here, the only problem is it actually will end up playing a lot like Reaper and having the Reaper problem where you only get the crit chance in Berserk mode, albeit Berserkers can stay in Berserk mode a little bit better than Reapers can in Reaper Shroud, so it might still play alright. I don't know. Buffing Martial Cadence, interesting and weird in PvP and World vs. World. This is after they decreased it, so apparently it was fine. People like to complain about this one, so it's interesting to see them do, like, no, this was right. Vigorous Shouts, a little bit more support for probably, like, Spellbreakers and stuff, a little bit more sustain, some more Horn buffs, and that's pretty much it. Again, do you have anything to add other than... So what I think this is, really, is, especially for the Bladesworn stuff, is here's some numbers changes that we can do now, and then, like, hopefully we'll actually fix it mechanically in June, right? Because I keep hoping for that, you know, I got my tinfoil hat on. I keep hoping for that, you know, Bladesworn rework, or at least quality of life rework, right?
Yeah, I wonder what their priority list on big reworks. I remember, I think, I don't know if it was a rework of Arc Divider a long time ago, but I remember trying Berserker in it, and they like heavily nerfed it, and since then it's been pretty useless as far as I know. But I do remember that moment where it was like all there was to do on Berserker was just hit Arc Divider as many times as possible.
Yeah, it's gonna be interesting. I don't know. Decapitate's also getting a buff, and that's the axe one that you just basically only press axe right now. Like, there's no reason to really switch out of it. You just literally the Berserker rotation. I think I just got hit by a Charcopter. Um, the only, you know, the what is it? Berserker rotation is basically just axe F1 in Berserk mode, and then press all your Berserk stuff. So it's a very fun rotation, especially for new players. But I think it's leaving a little bit to be desired, but what do I know? I don't play it. Alright. Thief's in a good place, according to them. They got a couple Thief changes. What's your opinion on this as a, let's say, Thief enthusiast, as well as them giving initiative on Signets? You think it'll do anything?
I mean, that's Signets feel like the best utility skills Thief's got, so it seems like just making something strong even stronger. But I was hoping for more Spectre buffs, but it doesn't seem like they have that.
You think the Signets are the strongest utilities on Thief?
I mean, like, as a utility class, I don't think they're the best compared to other things, but I think, like, Signets are most builds have at least one Signet on the bar.
Interesting. Do you mean in PvP or PvE? Or both?
PvP, as far as I know.
Interesting. I'm trying to think of...
And even, I think Signet of Agility is used often in PvE, from what I remember, but I'm not sure about that anymore.
Okay, that makes sense. No, all I know is Thieves have Shadow Step, which is the best teleport in the game, and that's on everything forever.
Yes, no, that's an auto-include.
Double stun break, 1200 range teleport that cleanses conditions. Yeah, it seems pretty good. Interesting. Well, it's interesting that they're experimenting with, like, giving, you know, Firebrand initiative and then giving it ways to get more initiative back, and same thing with Thief and stuff. So, I like that they're working more with the systems that they're building into the game, honestly. Like I said, I don't know if it was before this, but the thing I'm most excited about all these patch notes, and I cannot find them on the wiki, I just don't know how to use the Guild Wars 2 wiki, I guess. I'm most excited, really, for them giving us concrete dates on future releases. Which to me seems like they have more of a roadmap than maybe, you know, when we don't get communication, it's always refreshing to be like, hey, you know, this isn't the end, we're getting another balance patch in June, right?
Yeah, it feels like there's like a sequencing thread to this where they're like building towards a larger goal rather than just like one-off balance patches that are very reactionary.
Yeah. It's a little bit awkward, especially arenanet. I mean, I can't imagine. I was thinking today, like, imagine if your job was to be in charge of balance, but it wasn't to be in charge of class design. So you could tweak numbers, but you couldn't change, like, you know, you couldn't address if I, you know, some insane person like me made a video about Bladesworn or something. You couldn't actually like do anything to fix the mechanical stuff, right? All you could do is really, you know, tweak the numbers, and that's kind of what they're doing here, which is good. I'm not going to say it's not, right? Um, hmm. Yeah, Daiku in my chat's like Arctivedge is the coolest fuck button. He's absolutely right. And yeah, obviously better. Yeah, it's getting a huge PvE buff. I don't know. It's gonna be interesting where this all shakes out, because Warrior's been needing stuff for a really long time, and it's nice to see them giving it some tools, if nothing else, with numbers. Because I've been a really I make this point in the first like 8 seconds of my Bladesworn video. There's two ways of really addressing a skill, and don't let me get too off topic, but there's two really ways of addressing a skill. You can rework it, which is hard and takes development time and effort, or you can just change the numbers, right? And the latter is not as exciting, but if offhand sword on warrior did 9 billion damage, it'd be pretty good, right? Like, its mechanics would still suck, but doing 9 billion damage would be like kind of sweet. So nothing's really underpowered or overpowered because its mechanics suck, unless it literally doesn't work sometimes, which is kind of my argument for the Bladesworn thing. But anyway, yeah. So Thief, they think it's in a good spot, adding some initiative. You have anything that you're hoping to see them change on Thief? If you tried it in PvP at all, or you've just been playing the scrapper nonsense?
Yeah, I mean, I don't really play. I haven't played Thief in PvP in many years, but
You
I
did your
don't know.
world versus
I
world
think,
build.
yeah, that's true. No, I do. I enjoyed that Spectre build a lot. I mean, I think that's the thing is like I really, as someone who's been a Necro main for the last few years, I really love Spectre, and I'd love to see Spectre be viable in PvP. So whatever, I don't really know what needs to happen to make that happen, but I'd love to see it.
Is there anything you just don't like about it? Like, one of the things that we found when we were, at least Guy and me, when we were fighting you, is the tether range when you target an enemy is huge. It is so hard to break that.
Yeah, definitely. I don't know. It definitely seems like mechanically there's some maybe broken things, but the balance doesn't actually make them be broken.
Yeah, I
It
don't know
just
if
looks
that's...
like it could be.
I don't know if it's really broken. It's just like... Uh, I'm trying to think, because there's nothing I really like. I keep saying this. Spectre, I think, is the best, like, balance-wise, and execution and concept. I think it gets like an 8 overall on everything. It's the best both conceptually and executed class of End of Dragons, and also balance-wise right now. Like, there was that PvP season where literally everybody was just Spectre forever, but they like tuned it down, and now it's good, but it's not like broken. So I don't
Oh, I
know.
missed that. I wish I had played PvP during that period.
Yeah, it was like high tier PvP too. That was the like Spectre edition. It was like the first one after End of Dragons. Like, gold was all mechanist, just auto attacking with rifle because it did infinity damage, and then like high tier PvP was like Spectres who knew what they were doing. I think you were like moving or something when that happened though.
Yeah, I mean, Spectre definitely seems like it's in a great spot. It really seems like there's just other outliers that make it not relevant.
Yeah. I mean, it still has the issue where it's like very kind of single target, even though they gave it a bunch of wells, but we'll see. Alright, cool. That's Thief, that's Warrior. Renegade, I know people are excited about this. They're tuning up, a lot of, like, PvE Renegade, or they're tuning down PvE Renegade and then tuning up Condi, PvP Renegade, which is really interesting because, I mean, not everything needs to be able to kill everything in PvP. That's why the, like, counters exist and the original rock, paper, scissors system existed. But the one thing my power Blitzworm build really struggles against in PvP is, like, Condi Jealous Spectre. Or, not Spectre, Renegade. So seeing this, I'm like, crap. Yeah, they're giving it back some sustain with the increased base healing on Fiendish Tenacity, which is like the, while you have resistance thing, I think it heals you. Echoing Eruption, which has ammunition, like, reducing the recharge time is pretty big. This is kind of an interesting one. They're bringing down Facet of Nature targets in PvE from, like, the passive boon duration from 10 to 5, so I guess maybe they just missed that and they realized they missed it. So they're normalizing it to 5. There's still a couple things that hit 10. I think, like, Time Warp hits 10, maybe. I don't know if they'll ever change that, but we'll see. It was really interesting. They're really just 180 on their since Heart of or Path of Fire, their thing of like, hey, let's give things 10 charges, because it turns out being able to hit double the targets is really good. Yeah, pretty much just numbers tweaks for this. Here's an interesting one. Vindicators had this issue where dodge skills were using weapon strength instead of whatever they were like supposed to scale off of. I wonder if that's again gonna do more or less damage now. Vindicator, it's not in here as well, and I don't know if they missed it or what, but Vindicators have this issue where, especially when they're using their power dodge, they can get like an extra attack off, and it's actually really strong in PvP because basically all you do is spam the power dodges and your nuke skills, right? It's kind of like Mirage 2.0. So I'd like to see them fix that. I know a couple like high tier streamers have talked about it, but what are you gonna do? Just jump in if you have anything to add, but I know you don't really play Revenant either. We'll get to Necro eventually.
Yeah, that's probably the only place I can offer real insight.
Ranger, Fervent Force, being tuned down in PvE. That's the one that cools your skills down whenever you use a disable skill, so going from 4 seconds to 3-second cooldown reduced. Very strong nerf, but a very strong trait to begin with because it has like basically no cooldown, so that's extremely good. It'll still be good. That build will probably still be strong. It's just already really hard to play. Like Dot was trying it in our raid, and then he was like, I'm just gonna play Vindicator. Lots of like bug fixes, which is really cool. Fixed an issue that prevented applying might to down players, which apparently is a thing that you can do. I think I knew that, but like, when would you ever see it? Because you can't see boons on your bar when you're downed. These buffs because they gave it passive Astral Force a while ago on Druid. This like 5 to 8 passive Astral Force is gonna be a nightmare to fight immobilized Druids roaming, dude. They're already so strong because Ancient Seeds has like a 10-second cooldown. There's like Trapper immobilized Druid, Condi is just so hard to fight. That's really the only insight I have on that is just Paper Roll is gonna have a field day who does nothing but Ranger videos with this. Alright, here's your Necro changes. You wanna talk about this a little bit since I've rambled about everything else?
Just like introduce it like you've been doing.
Yeah, go through it. The main points is like they're tuning up everything in PvE, like every damage skill by a lot, which is cool. And they're also kind of touching the shroud or the shouts hitting like stronger in melee range, which is kind of like Reaper's thing. So they're giving it like double bonus instead of just 50% bonus for hitting in melee range. So they're gonna be like way stronger. Like Reaper's gonna be a very good option.
I love to see it because I can't remember when Reaper was ever actually like good in PvE. It always felt like kind of
Reaper's
second
never been
tier
good
at best.
because there was that time when they had the bleeding trait whenever they applied chill, like that was right after it came out, and then the Anet went, wait, Reaper's actually a power profession, and like nerfed the crap out of the Condi version to the point where bitter chill was basically unusable in PvE. And that was really weird because now they've kind of gone to like, okay, there should be a power and a Condi version. But like, yeah, Power Reaper forever. It's just gotten these little sad incremental buffs, and it's nice to see them just go, you know what, F it. We'll just buff everything and see what happens. Like everything's nuts now anyway.
Yeah, no, I definitely love to see it because it always felt like you played Reaper in PvE and got and everyone just got mad at you for it.
It's really too bad because it's a really well playing and well sort of like conceptually like a really good spec, honestly.
Yeah, it's really smooth. I think like it being good is really cool to me because I feel like Reaper is probably one of the easiest classes to get into high end PvE with if you're still learning the game and getting used to its mechanics.
Yeah, I definitely agree. It's very tanky. It's got some options. The only thing it doesn't really have is like range damage, but it has some. Like Bladesworn has some. Arguably, it's not the worst. I cannot find these changes on the wiki. I don't know. Probably should have done it before, but I guess I'll just keep going through their patch notes. It's fine. I'm just in this pile of people. Let me move off. So aside from maybe playing Reaper and PvE, JK, you're going to be on Virtuoso forever. I'm trying to think if there's anything dramatic. It's interesting the blight stacks are doubling on Harbinger, so it makes it even harder to play, but they basically think they just don't want people to just sit in Harbinger Shroud auto-attacking, like in PvE, right?
Yeah. I mean, that's definitely where it. I mean, it's weird because that's the only way it feels viable to get that trade off of that shroud because the auto attack is so strong.
Yeah. It's almost it's very strange to me because a lot of PvP, like in definitely World versus World Harbinger, doesn't have any of these trade-offs really, right? Like it never gets like these egregious, doubling blight or doubling damage or like healing reduced things. It's like PvP they adjusted a little bit with like adjusting the boon duration for Elixir of Ambition, aka the button that gives you all the boons in the game. But it's like it's very weird when they do something like this, which is really more of a mechanical change than a numbers change, right? Because if you can only spend half as much time in Shroud, especially in PvE, where like taking damage is kind of a big deal, that's like a substantial change to being able to play this class, especially when your option is like this newly buffed Power Reaper, right?
Yeah, it's definitely it's an odd choice to me because it doesn't feel like Harbinger is particularly better than the other specs anywhere right now.
Yeah, I mean they're doing some stuff to tune it up from like giving Elixir of Ambition a little bit of a buff in PvE, but I don't know. I guess every condition going from 1 to 3 seconds is pretty big, but it's still a 60-second button. So we'll see. We'll see where it lands. Da 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 da. Went through that. Went through that. Went through that. So here's an interesting thing, and they did this in a couple professions, not just Mirage. They're kind of decreasing the ability of things to provide like quickness and alacrity without at least building some boon duration, right? That's this big Chaos Vortex change because originally you could just use Chaos Vortex and it would only measure the number of clones and then do the alacrity around you. Now it does the alacrity around every staff clone, so you need to have staff clones, so you can't just like build axe clones and then just do infinity damage while giving alacrity with no boon duration. And now you even need to build like boon duration on Mirage in order to give alacrity. Um, with this Chaos Vortex change going from 1 to 0.5 seconds of alacrity provided. Which is kind of weird because I feel like it's already not that strong, but compared to other alacrity providers, especially with this like renegade change, I don't know. It's very interesting. Chrono Phantasma going down and dazing. I guess it just has a little bit less break available to it in PvE. Because this will still break for 100 instead of 200 basically on each hit. Yeah, it's pretty much the only notable thing. Oh, well, here's another one. I like to see this because while I already think like Torch is an extremely strong weapon for Mesmer in PvP, like it's got good buttons. Like the Invis is very good and the Mage is very good. Pistol's always been a pretty competing option on it, especially for like one-shot power builds that just disable you. And it's nice when they're adjusting both Torch, like they're buffing Torch a little bit, but they're also buffing Pistol. You know what I mean? So like the two competing options both get buffed at once, so they still compete together. You know what I mean?
Yeah, these changes aren't making a lot of sense to me, to be honest.
Why? Because they were already strong.
Yeah, exactly. It feels like they're buffing things that are naturally strong, and Chrono's like in a strong spot right now in PvP. I mean, these trait changes are PvE only, but like the offhand changes, I don't know if they're actually making it stronger. If like, because what other offhands are there? Are those it?
Well, this is for PvP, so like your offhands for Mesmer and PvP are pretty much Pistol and Torch. Um,
Yeah.
so this is aimed at PvP, but like Chronomancer is getting PvE buffs, so well, sort of. It's getting a
Yeah,
days
it's odd to
reduction.
me to see the offhands get buffed. Because I mean, they seem like just those are very strong offhands, no
Already,
matter
yeah.
what. Like they bring so much utility
I
to the game
agree.
mode.
I mean, I agree, and especially giving it like 2 condition cleanse in PvP, although it kind of needs it because PvP's got some conditions going on right now with Harbinger. Um, Especially also on classes that can like give itself alacrity, reducing the cooldown is very dangerous. And I say that as like a Mirage player. Um, I don't know. They're not huge buffs, right? They're not like, oh, we're reducing this, giving it ammunition or reducing it by like 10 seconds. One of them's 5, but and this phantasmal duelist one is very very ancillary. It must just line up better with 18 seconds with something. Magic bullet I think is the biggest buff because like that's already a very strong button. I don't know. We'll see. It's nice to see, like I said, to them to have like competing options buffed at the same time. You can bring sword, but sword's a PvE weapon, right?
Yeah, I don't know if I've ever seen sword used.
So here's this big one, right? On Guardian, and there's this huge post by basically this dude who seems like me, but for Willbender on Reddit, reacting to this. Phoenix Protocol, the alacrity trait on Willbender's going down from increasing your duration of resolve, which is the thing that provides alacrity, the virtue basically that provides alacrity. I don't know if they're called something different on Willbender, but basically the middle button that makes you provide alacrity is going down instead of increasing it by 1 second, so you can just sit and resolve. Basically, instead of increasing by 2 seconds, now decreases it by 1 second. So that's kind of weird. And my suspicion, and you can go read his post. I forget what the dude's name is, but it's very detailed and very good. Go check under the notes. But basically, my suspicion is they want you to just not sit in resolve and do damage. They want there to be more to the rotation and still be able to provide alacrity. And this also seems like, while Willbender is the best, in quotes, damage and alacrity provider right now, it also feels like you need to build some boon duration for this, right? Like, same thing as Mirage. You need to, like, spec into this a little bit. You can't just literally equip Willbender and then sit in Phoenix Protocol. You know what I mean? I think that's probably why they're doing that. Again, fix more whirl finishers with Whirling Wrath. A lot of bug fixes, actually. It's nice that someone on their balance team plays Guardian. Wish they'd play Warrior. Yeah. I also think it's incredibly funny that Guardians had a trait called Unrelenting Criticism, which will now give you just bleeding on X attacks, instead of giving you a chance to do it. That's very funny. Big Justice nerf. Big Permeating Wrath nerf, but only in PvE, which is interesting. I think it was already down to 1 second in World vs. World, so you can get it up to 2 if you trait for it, or like build for it. Yeah, you occasionally play blue class. You got anything to add?
Not really. I don't. Yeah, I mean, it always feels like Guardian's favorite in general, and always like viable everywhere. So I don't know what to say about it.
10 Guardian raid. 10 Guardian HTCM. It's on YouTube. Um, nice that they're following up with more a couple more Dragon Hunter buffs, since it's still not quite where it needs to be in PvE. It's nice that this is my second part about all these notes, honestly, is A, we're getting a release date for the next one, and B, we're getting like follow-ups to things that they said they'd do, right? Where it's not just like, okay, this is a patch and we're done, which, words are easy and works hard, so they always say that, but this is really like the first time where it's like, oh, there've actually been like incremental Dragon Hunter buffs, each patch, and that's kind of cool to see that they're following up on that. All right, you do the NG ones. You've been playing NG. Talk about how surprised you are that Scrapper's not in here.
I mean, yeah, this just throws me like. I mean, I think in general the balance patch is more focused on PVE than I thought it would, and because I mean I don't really understand what PVE needs because, like you said, I've just been on Mesmer the whole time. But for NG, I'm just extra shocked that it only says PV and War vs. World on all these changes because it really needs some nerfs, at least grenades in PvP.
It's so strong. Well, the thing with Scrapper, right? Everyone always is like, oh, it only generates 5% barrier of the damage it does, right? It turns out that 5% of like 15,000 damage grenade barrages with Berserker gear is like really good. Especially if you can heal that every auto-thrown grenade attack, over your shoulder or whatever. They can do snap to target nonsense. So
yeah, it's just kind of ridiculous to me how much Scrapper mechanics gives sustain to a pure Berserker build.
Yeah. Hot take, I don't know, mechanically I think it also has a little bit too much super speed, but you know, maybe that's part of the kit. I don't really know. Maybe just they want it to have
That's the
permanent super
coldest
speed.
take right there.
Yeah. I don't know. RSQ would talk about how he's excited that Hollowsmith might be viable after this because he really likes Hollow, but he's not here.
Yeah, I mean that is Hollow is an incredible spec in my opinion. I think it's one of the best they've ever made.
Yeah, it's almost like in that Reaper vein where it's like, oh, I get this moment of power where I can pull out my Hollow form and do all this cool stuff. It's
Yeah, just to me it feels like, I mean, I think in general I've never been a fan of elite specialization design, but Hollowsmith really hits it with like you can see by the animations what you need to worry about, and so
That's
it
true.
takes a lot of skill to really pull off, and it also is fairly predictable to fight against, so you don't feel like cheated when you get destroyed by a good Hollowsmith.
Right. It's kind of, I feel like it's more warrior than a lot of NG builds where it's like, oh, okay, I lost because I misplayed this or he was good, instead of I lost because I got nuked out of stealth and had no idea what any of, like, I got hit by a rave and then a mesmer killed me, right? So it's like kind of like that. Yeah, I don't know. Hollowsmith's always exciting to see. I personally, I know it wasn't functioning like they wanted it to, but I miss the days when holographic shockwave, the 5 hammer hollow skill, um, did damage and could go up walls. It didn't obey terrain pathing in World vs. World, so it would go up walls and hit the people on top of the walls in World vs. World. Um, I really miss that. I want them to bring it back because I think it's very funny and also like kind of nice counterplay if you have a couple things that do that. Torch 5 on Scourge also used to do that where you could target people in like space and it would just hit them no matter what. That was very cool. But
Yeah,
anyway,
actually, I like the idea of having skills that do that intentionally. I mean, also specifically with
not like
Hollow
portals.
Smith 5, it's so telegraphed. I think that skill deserves to be overpowered.
Yeah. Um, Interesting to me, Photonic Blasting Module is getting actually this huge. This is actually the most powerful skill in the game, if you didn't know. This trait that whenever you overload your heat. It does this like big charge up blast thing that hurts you a little bit. Um, that was at like five times power scaling, which if you build like 4,000 power or whatever, like you can get on a. I had a meme Zerg diving hollow build that I wanted someone to play. I made it and played it once, and if you managed to like overload in a Zerg, you did just like 100,000 damage, and it was very funny. Like, you were probably dead, but you're taking some people down with you, right? So it's interesting to see that go from like 5.0 power scaling down to 3.5, which is actually like a really substantial nerf. Um, I don't know. Not everything needs to be ridiculous, right? But that was just kind of funny for me to see like them recognize that, oh, this thing is like really good. What do we got after this? I'm fighting a brand thing. Elementalist. So the big one on Elementalist, as far as I'm concerned, they're finishing a lot or fixing a lot of these world finishes, right? Um, the big one that you brought up is Stoneheart for PvP at least. And if you didn't know, Stoneheart is a trait. It's a Grandmaster in Earth that lets you basically, when you're attuned to Earth, you don't take critical hits. And it hasn't. Do you want to really like sort of explain what we were talking about before the podcast, where it hasn't been a problem before, but now it kind of is that they made staff viable?
Yeah, I mean, I think every time there's been a reason to take a support Tempest and it hasn't been hard countered, Stoneheart's been one of the strongest parts of that build. And it's I feel like it's always needed this exact nerf to it, to kind of just involve more skill and even just like more attunement switching, which in my opinion should be the core of any LE build. But I think now especially that Tempest support is viable, and honestly, I think Stoneheart is probably what made it viable in this meta with so many Berserker builds running around that rely on that critical hits.
Yeah.
So I'm interested in seeing how much of a nerf in terms of the PvP meta this really is, because it could be huge.
I think it'll be very fair. Because I don't know, I'm biased because I play Bladesworn and literally all of my damage is like if I don't crit you, I do 500 damage, right? It's going to, especially coupled with the fact that you have to keep in mind that one of the bugs they're fixing is like the fact that Earth Overload and Water Overload don't correctly. I think Arwen explained this in our raid yesterday. They don't correctly apply like alacrity or whatever boons they're trying to dish out on every tick all the time. If you have quickness, so they're changing it so that if you somehow have quickness, those will like function correctly and give you alacrity or healing or whatever, or probably protection with Earth. So, and your attunements are affected by alacrity. So yeah, you're gonna have to like switch into Earth to get this benefit of Stoneheart, right? But you're also gonna be able to do that a little bit more reliably since they're like fixing this bug. Granted, you don't usually have quickness, so it's not usually an issue, but like it's kind of nice.
Yeah, it is. And the most interesting part about this is they're saying you also get it on exiting Earth attunement, which in some ways might actually make it stronger.
Yeah. I don't know how I feel about that. We'll see. They didn't give a duration, right? So I'm gonna just guess 3 seconds. 3 seconds both ways, and obviously that won't be affected by boon duration. Yeah, it's gonna be interesting. The huge fortified earth nerf for World versus World. That's a gigantic barrier nerf. What was the big one that they also changed? So they wanted to do this thing where we were trying to figure it out. The elite skill Elemental Celerity used to like if you practice conditions, it would recharge your skill, like your weapon skills from 100%, like all the weapon skills. So I don't play Elementalist enough. I need to hit like Cellofrag up or something, but he would know why this is here. I'm suspecting that this is here because of Meteor Shower. I think Edmonton might have mentioned. Meteor Shower is 30 seconds by default in World vs. World, right? So if you're on Catalyst, you could basically get double Meteor Showers if you popped Elemental Celerity without specking into Fire. If you spec into Fire, the cooldown will be like 24 seconds and under this, and you'll still be able to do it. But basically, I think this is saying you need to spec into whatever the attunement is for those 30-second skills, right? Because otherwise, it's like a little bit too strong to just be able to pull Meteor Shower, double Meteor Shower out of your butt, even if you're on a support build, right? Support Catalyst or whatever. Other than that, I really don't know. I don't play Elementals enough for World vs. World to have any idea what that could be aimed at, other than what I've said.
I mean, that makes sense to me if it's Meteor Shower, because from my limited War vs. World experience, Meteor Shower seems
Well,
like
you've
one of the
been doing
most
it more.
useful destroying skills in the game.
I mean, they've nerfed it 400 times and it's still good. So yeah, it seems quite strong. Um, yeah, I don't know what else that could be aimed at really, other than exactly that being having to spec into stuff. Sign of Water buffs, Dragon's Tooth. I don't like that. Like again, this is probably just a numbers change, and for a numbers change patch, this is amazing, Cal. Like, good job. Like this is a very good example of what I was saying before, where like if a skill does 80 billion damage, it's going to be good, regardless of if that skill almost never hits, right? Um, hey Kashima, spicy patch notes. I don't know. I think they're honestly pretty solid. I'm a little disappointed again that it seems to be a smattering of bug fixes, but I think the things I'm most excited for are that not necessarily the patch notes, but they're giving us a concrete date for what's supposedly a bigger patch in June, like June 27th up here, he says, which is very, very nice to see. And B, they're like keeping consistent with like, they said they were going to buff Power Dragon Hunter. That didn't work out the first patch, really. That didn't work out the second patch, really. This is the third buff they've done to it, and they're like keeping consistent with that. Um, if you have questions, you want to throw in like commentary and stuff, we can talk about it. But yeah, um, getting to the end of Elementalist. So I don't, and this is something I brought up with RSQ. The Dragon's Tooth tracks you now buff was insane, right? Because Dragon's Tooth went from basically a useless skill on Scepter, like Catalyst for PvP, to now you need, like, the counter is press your dodge button, which is kind of unhealthy for skills to be, like, the only counter is your dodge button or some kind of evade, right? So they're bringing the power on it down again. It was very strong, and then it was less strong, but still strong, and now it's going to be even less strong, but still strong. I still think the system, the solution to this Dragon's Tooth change, honestly needs to be it tracks you for a little bit, but like if you have swiftness or any kind of like speed increasing trait or boon or anything, you could run out of it, right? If you were doing nothing
Yeah.
but running.
Yeah, I
Um,
really think it should work like a lot of those like raid and strike bosses where they'll like put an orange circle around you and at the
right,
last second it'll just lock to the ground and you can run out of it.
right. Like maybe not run out of it with like your base movement speed, but like there's counters. You know what I mean? Like they test it a little bit. So you could blink out of it, you could jump out of it. It's just it having something that just hits you because F you didn't press a button is kind of nuts. Especially like I think Catalyst can still give themselves like give some of their stuff unblockable, so it's just that build's always going to be pretty strong unless they completely dumpster it, which they're doing a little bit here with the Catalyst changes, but it's I think it'll still be very strong. It's so surprising that like no scrapper changes, right? Just pretty much the stealth thing and that's it. So
Yeah,
weird.
it was really I mean, from it feels like to me that Catalyst and Scrapper are some of the strongest specs in PvP right now. So it's weird to see only like PvE Warverse rolled on the changes.
Yeah.
Because like Dragon's Tooth, I feel like could easily be hit in PvP too, and I agree with you. I think it really should have some counterplay with
Like
swiftness.
well there's just
Yeah, I just don't understand why they're not touching them in PvP right now, unless they have like a big overhaul plan for the next
yeah.
patch.
I mean, it's gonna be interesting to see. I'm very excited. I didn't even know we were getting another patch that soon, but it gives me something to look forward to. Yeah, it's so now that we can go back to that and just take commentary and stuff, Kashima. I talked about that a little bit at the beginning. Yeah, it's so this whole notes thing I said a little bit at the beginning feels, especially with like this the evidence by this Dragon's Tooth thing we were just talking about. Um, there's not a lot of like Stoneheart mechanical changes, right? This is very much like Cal said, a minor balance patch, and I thought this was the big one. This is very much sort of a numbers balance patch, which I really encourage them doing. Like I've said a million billion times, there's a lot of ways like you can't fix every skill in the game, evidenced by the Dragon's Tooth thing this way, but you can fix a lot of stuff just by doing numbers changes. And I think the Bladesworn changes that are in this patch, and a lot of the changes, like the Dragon's Tooth change is in this patch, are just like sort of what they had time for, right? Or like these are the numbers changes, and then maybe, I can hope, right? Like a girl can dream in the future. Um, they'll mechanically tune up Bladesworn, like make some of its stuff not miss, or make, the F2 kneel and toggleable, or maybe they'll make Dragon's Tooth not track you as much, or maybe they'll I don't know, just make grenade kits. Like, okay, so if they're not doing mechanical changes and they've already done the numbers changes they think they need to do to Scrapper, what are the mechanical changes that you would like to see? That's actually a really good question. For chat, for Sea Monster, what do you think in PvP would make Scrapper still good, but would definitely mechanically change it so that it's not just, nuts? I have mine, but I'd like to hear yours
Yeah, I mean,
first.
for me, I really think it's just super speed. I don't think it needs that much of it personally, and I mean, maybe it does, but I don't think it does in the combination of also being able to
So like you
have
need to
access
spec
to
into
high
it more.
powered abilities.
Like maybe you can't take some of your damage stuff or like make the traits alternative so that they can take some super speed, but they need to give up some damage traits or something just a little bit.
Yeah, exactly. If Scrappers like completely focus on sustain, I think super speed, especially giving super speed to your allies, is incredible. An incredible piece of the kit, but I think in combination with being really good at damage, like it shouldn't be the best engineer DPS spec ever.
Yeah, it's pretty good. I mean, even quickness like quickness scrapper in PvE is pretty strong. You only need minimal boon duration, but at least you need some, right? Um, it's very interesting. I if we're doing mechanical change, and this is really a minor mechanical change, I feel like I would just change it so you can't chuck grenades over your shoulder. You need to be facing the target. You know?
Yeah, I mean those are things that I think have always frustrated me about the game's design, where it's like if you edit your keybinds and understand how the mechanics of the game work, you can just get so much more value out of skills. Where I think most new players wouldn't even understand the combination of buttons to be able to chuck them over their
Well,
shoulder.
no, you can just grenades. You don't need to be facing your target. So, for example, on like all grenades, on Bladesworn, it's really weird, and this is you don't play it, so it's a bad example. But like, you know, there's the gun saber shoots bullets, right? They updated the 2 skill to be ranged, which is just like basically you know a shoot a bullet and an enemy attack. Um, they also updated the 3, which is like the big shoot a bullet and an enemy attack that also dazes. The 3 you don't need to be facing your target. You can cast it and it'll shoot over your shoulder and hit them, right? But the 2 skill won't fire unless you're actually facing the target. It's like think I don't know a good analogy.
Yeah, exactly. No, I think that would be an incredible fix to grenades. It's just I mean because I think like one of the best uses of grenades is like just auto running straight away from someone, turning your camera all the way around and hitting them. And I feel like most people that wouldn't really think of that without the people that are like really experienced at that class.
Well, just holding like there's a look behind button you can set, and then you can just snap to target or even just chuck grenades at. Like it's so strong.
Yeah, exactly.
I would just change that. So and then like people who are still really skilled at the game could probably still do it, right? Like Ryan when he logs on every set, you know, Blue Moon is probably the best mechanical player in the guild, even though he doesn't play that much. He shows me insane crap you can do. Like on Ranger, there's like a 5-button combination, so you can just shoot arrows behind you while running with any of the bows. And you can do it, and he can do it. It's just really a pain in the butt to like pull off with bad ping or in PvP. You know what I mean? Like there's button combinations.
Exactly. I think that's how it should be, especially from talking to him. Like there really should be, there should be a really high skill ceiling, or it's just impossible to do.
Yeah, it's. I think just honestly consistency. All the grenades or should either you know be taken down in damage and then you can still throw them over your shoulder, or you know keep the damage and change it. Just side note, since I haven't spent enough of this podcast complaining about Bladesworn, I don't really care which way you change it. Like, obviously, I'd like to be able to fire the 2 and the auto attack over my shoulder, but it makes no sense that they updated the 1, the 2, and the 3 skill, and then the 3 you can chuck over your shoulder, and the 1 and the 2 you can't. It feels like it's awful. Like, make them consistent, please. Also, the 1 attack doesn't go 900 range, but if you want more fun Bladesworn complaining, go watch my Bladesworn is buggy and jank video. I'll have a video on like what builds I'm excited for with it. When and if the patch go through. But we'll see. Unshakable Mountain's gonna be nuts. Tactical Reload's gonna be even more nuts. Stay tuned for nuts broken, and by broken I mean really just viable now. World versus World build from Pseudo on the Bladesworn channel that this is. But yeah, that's the patch notes. I'm excited. Like I said, I'm more excited for consistency. I'm a little bummed we didn't get like a little preview stream. I really enjoy those, but they're probably just busy. I don't know how true if there's any truth to the myth that arenanet is working on a separate game right now, but they might be. Who knows? People might be busy with that. Yeah. Do you have anything to add, Z Monster?
I mean, I think I'm really happy about the Reaper PV changes. I feel like it and a lot of the older specializations are like in a great place. They just need numbers tweaks. And I think Reaper was the main one that needed some number tweaks like this, so I'm happy to see it.
I think a lot of people feel that way. So for Daredevil, no. Thief, they're almost doing nothing, Kashima. He asked if there were any changes really in the patch notes. They're giving a little bit more initiative to signets, which is nice. It's that they're again following up with that they said they would do. A couple bug fixes. They think it's in a good place. I will say that apparently Deadeye is getting a quick fix build in the next patch, which is going to be interesting. Yeah, like I think so too. Like I still think Spectre is the best idea and the best executed class of at least balance wise and fun wise for End of Dragons. And it looks like, Deadeye's getting quickness, so maybe, Spectre will get a little bit of a buff to its support build, and then Kaiban may have imagined that. And then, like, next patch, June 29th, I think, Deadeye might get some quickness, which is pretty cool here. Yeah. That's interesting. Condi Renegade is going to be a bitch to fight. That's going to be rough. PvP. I'll deal somehow. Oh, Kashima, while you're here, I'll put it in chat. I'm going to do a video on this. before we wrap up, I made a Dante. Yeah, be quicker, be killed probably. I made you a Dante build. It does run Spectre, but I also have a Daredevil edition of it. I'll link right now. Um, and I was gonna just do a Dante cosplay and like make this build, but there's the Spectre one, and here's the Daredevil variant if you wanted to try it. And I forgot that you have like the main hand sword, and you could get like the Zaitan variant of the Arene weapons, and then basically have Dante's sword from Devil May Cry since you asked about it. So there you go. I put it into my test account. Grab them from chat. I'll put them in the actual Build Wars 2 channel as well. But that's exciting. Here, I'll just change this one sec. Right. Sea Monster, do you have anything to add?
Not really. There is
What would you
something
like
I'd
to
be
see
interested to hear
in the
your
big
thoughts
patch?
on. Of like in terms of more major overhauls, something that's been bugging me for a while. You kind of brought up, but I've just been. I feel like their original balance in this game was just core specs was
Yeah,
essentially a
talk
rock
about it.
paper scissors system, and elite specs feel like the goal is to make each class a jack of all trades, but in practice for me it feels like it just makes a lot of classes very inconsistent to play, and like there's just so many weird inconsistencies where like you'd expect a certain mechanical consistency with each class that then when you swap different elite specs doesn't really have. Like I don't know, like something you brought up before is like I think fast hand should just be like you should expect going into warrior you're getting easier like faster weapon swaps. Like that
I
should just be a
hate
warrior
that.
thing, and the class
I
should
hate
all
that.
be balanced around that.
uh, Especially because all the burst skills suck butt now. But yeah, actually, this is good. We finished up the patch, and there's we can just talk about general stuff unless you have somewhere to be. This is something I like, especially with bringing different people on. And we talked a little bit about having Tay on because he has this meme thing where he wants to just come on and complain about this game's boon balance in general, which I actually think is something that Cal empathizes with a lot because he's mentioned like we don't want just classes to just give like 25 might anymore. We want like, maybe two people to have to do it at least in a PvE party because stuff, I mean, you can't even argue it, is really strong right now. Like things are just very strong in PvE. Like look no further than things doing like 50k damage on some fights, right? But basically, and this is something that I've realized, especially reading through the notes as well, or like the comments on the forums and the Reddit, Reddit threads after they publish stuff. Everybody, obviously, everyone's very very different. Um, Everyone's very different. Different people have different opinions, and everyone has their own like lens and perception of how they'd like the game in general balanced, but also their class like reworked and balanced, right? Like I have my whole thing where, yeah, I mean you happen to agree with it on it, but you also don't like really like elite specs at all. Um, so we differ in that respect, but we agree that sort of like if something's going to be core to the kit, like fast hands, or in my my complaining case, tactical reload, it should probably be like an F button or a class mechanic or something that it just has, and then like the rest of it balanced around it, right? So it's always really fun to have different people on because like RSQ, I mean hot take from him last time, he doesn't want more elite specs, and this he said that before we got the announcement basically that we're probably not getting elite specs at least for a really long time because he'd rather see them balance the ones they have, and that's actually what they're doing. Um,
Yeah, I mean, I
I
agree with that. I think elite
Yeah.
specs in concept, I have no issue with, but I think in practice, they just so many of them just ignore core mechanics of different game modes from the beginning. Like, just I don't like scrappers and more oversoiled when they were first made. It just like they're like having those gyros. Didn't it affect 10 targets in the beginning?
Might have affected 10 targets, but remember the gyros also like followed you and lagged behind you, so it wasn't even useful in World versus World for the longest time.
Oh, is that not? I don't know what it was. Maybe I'm not sure. All I know
Probably
is when
Scourge.
Firebrand and Scourge came out,
Yeah.
that was just obnoxious in PvP. Like a Scourge being able to place its shade over the whole
The whole
entire
point,
point and
right,
being as busted as it was, like it
right,
just feels like a lot of these specs are not made
for
with
everything.
every single game mode in mind and just how they work
Yeah.
mechanically.
No, Path of Fire was a nuts time. They were definitely trying some stuff. I do like that anet tries stuff, and I do like that they at least right now seem to be more consistent with trying stuff. Um, 10 targets for World versus World was a bold decision because the interesting thing for the 10 target thing for World versus World wasn't so much that scourges could affect 10 targets or like 20 targets or whatever they were when they in the beta. It was like 10 around your shade and then 10 around you or something. It was that when that went away, the counter to it became abusing the actual target game mechanic, which Kandi damage utility. I'll bring that up, Kashima. The counter to it basically became run a crap load of minions and also Golemancer runes, so that you yourself generate more targets than the enemy can deal with, and then they nerfed the actual health on Golemancer runes, which on the one hand I actually think is very clever to be able to be like, okay, we're actually going to take the like target priority of the game and use that to like fight Zergs, right? Like just everybody, no matter what you're running, run Golemancer runes because the Golem is busted and it had like 50k health or something. But on the other hand, that's not like there's no real counter to that, and there you can't like that's not an intended game mechanic that you're supposed to be able to like build runes to break the game, right? There's no like rune that's like reads break the game with this. So they fixed that. Um, I don't know. Yeah, Path of Fire was nuts. Heart of Thorns was nuts. I would like to leave YouTube and paste and go.
I was hoping from the beginning that elite specs were like actually specializing, like just focusing really heavily on like one thing, and not.
Give me an example.
I mean, even like Reaper, like only viable for power, instead of like you can do a Reaper any way you want.
Oh,
but
well, you'd love Warrior.
Yeah, exactly. But I don't know. I mean, even in a broader sense, like I think to me one of the biggest downsides of this game that's they've never really figured out, but I think boons are one of the big reason why it's this way, is like they tried to move away from the Holy Trinity, but in the end they just have their own version of the Trinity in like boon support, deep power DPS. Like it's all the roles are still there, and I think boons are a big reason for that, like needing to provide boons to your party. It's just the most efficient way to play this game, but I kind of wish elite specs had been designed with the purpose of really shaking that up, even if it was like something that I know arenanet would never do in their philosophy, but having like 3 different classes elite specs be one of them is required for a certain mechanic in a fight.
Yeah, I don't know. When druids came out, my first thought, because they were really the only healer, was I really wanted a boss kind of like, apparently there's one in WoW, and there's really only one in WoW, which is kind of weird to me, and it's not like a major raid boss, but you need to heal it to death. And I thought that would be really cool, or at least like a split phase where like, Veil Guardian, you need to go like heal one of the things to death or something. Like it's the aspect of death and you need to go like, counter that. Which
yeah, exactly. There's so much they could do in encounter design that would just add so much more depth to the combat.
They just don't have the people, man. Like encounter design, class design. It's refreshing that even like Cal and Roy, or the balance team, which is probably 3.5 people, are getting the space they are to tune up some of this stuff now, because they were in get End of Dragons out for so long. How do I phrase this? Get End of Dragons out, or we don't have jobs and we can't eat food mode for so long, because they were waiting on that like probably renewal from NCSoft. I have this theory where if they had X number of copies they needed to sell, like that NCSoft gave them, and if they sold X, they got like another expansion, right? Because they announced that almost immediately. And they definitely sold X, and then they sold X Plus with the Steam release. Like Josh has said, that the Steam release was just the cherry on top. They didn't even need to do it at that point. So they sold X Plus and got, maybe even more than one more expansion. So it's rough.
I'm happy to hear it, because it definitely felt like since around Icebreed Saga, no one at arenanet really seemed to understand what the future of this game was.
Bruh, Icebreed Saga was a dark time. I don't miss my IBS. That was, what's nuts about Icebreed Saga? There's like other when we were just getting the like help the code and do this mission stuff, and it was just like faction by faction. And they were just, I call it drip feeding us dog food to keep us entertained while they finish their expansion. Which to their credit they had to do. There were more factions that were data mined, like that we never got. That we were supposed to like assist on those escort missions and stuff. If you look in like the missing achievements for the return to achievements, there's like 6 more factions and stuff. So they definitely had stuff that they could like, hey, End of Dragons is actually taking way too long to develop. We can just procrastinate this even more, and give ourselves time to finish this. So it's like, oh boy, glad that didn't happen.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, like I think it was a brilliant system they came up with to save themselves work, but having it only exist in that period of time and like it be very transparent why it existed made it
Yeah,
so much worse.
yeah. I mean, they weren't transparent with it. It was just very obvious. He means.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah, like it wasn't. It was just the community knew
yeah,
understood.
it's like, yeah, they just this isn't expansion level content in arenanet. Don't pretend that it is. You literally don't have a game director right now. Um,
Yeah,
then they
but I
rehired
mean that
Colin,
kind
which
of
is dope.
content is like little bonuses or like little like side story patches. Like right
Yeah,
now, that would be really cool. Like I think drip feeding content like that is. I wish they like after they found that solution. I wish they started using it more often, especially in this kind of period. Where they were just doing season one over again. It would have been nice to
right.
see stuff like that.
I just, I mean, even failing that, let's just talk about weird decisions that ANET makes, right? I don't understand why they nerfed Guyala Delve before they released the second half of Guyala Delve. Like, they nerfed it twice? Or at least they did in patch notes, and it's like, bruh, you don't have content coming out right now. Let people enjoy your once a day meta, like that's gonna keep people playing the game and logging in before you nerf it into the ground. The next patch. It's so weird. They don't like they definitely have a history of doing that. Like look what I'm doing now with Dragonfall. Like this used to be insanely profitable, but I don't know. It's just it's very odd sometimes, especially since, we've discussed this a lot. I don't have a lot of use for gold. I've gotten to that point. You don't, eventually you just kind of run out of things to buy. So, it's whatever. I'm excited for the future of this game. I'm glad they're taking feedback. I'm glad that people seems to be enthusiastic about build crafting. If you have any comments or what you're excited about, hit me up in the comments. I read everything and respond to it. But yeah, it's pretty cool. If you haven't seen my Bladesworn video and you love complaining, go watch that. That was a good time. Um, so I will 100% admit, they were when I was doing the original record, there were some things I was wrong about. Chill and alacrity both affect your gun saber cooldown swap, for example. But there were absolutely some things that are in that edited video that I was not wrong about, and the class is still buggy and needs to be fixed. So if you enjoy complaining, go hit that up. If you enjoy necro things, hit Sea Monster up. He's now a necro main. He's graduated from being a thief main. Welcome to that. Hopefully, you can develop some interest in PvP. If you're having trouble in PvP, honestly, and people are just flaming you, close your chat box. Just play what you enjoy. That's my advice to you. I'll make 1,000 builds that won't work, and then I'll stumble onto a dumb build that will work for me every season. So, or not every season, but frequently. So it's pretty fun. Condi damage utility, to answer your question, Kashima, I don't really know which one you mean. I think you mean the what's it called? The one on Daredevil, Fist Flurry. Um, yeah, the Reaper buffs are exciting. Fist Flurry, Condi utility. Oh, you mean the utility food. Because there's nothing, the Karka potions aren't in the builder. So I just use that as my stand-in for Karka potions. Because they give 150 toughness, and they're like the best utility food, especially on something squishy like Thief in the game. Um, it's like 10% damage reduction on Thief. It's really, really, really good, so I just put that in there. Yeah. So sorry about that. There's also none for the decade enhancement things, which is really annoying, but especially because like that math would be really convenient to not have to do 3% of like every stat, but it is what it is. Um, yeah. Do you have anything to add, Sea Monster? Thank you for joining. Probably do another one of these in like, I don't know, I guess in June.
Or it sounds good. I hope I added something useful.
Oh, you did. It was fun. It's always good to have people who don't have my perspective on, because otherwise it's just me literally talking and then someone going, I agree. Which is why it's helpful to have like you and occasionally Juice and like RSQ frequently disagrees with me on stuff because he's like, I don't agree with that at all, man. This is like really good. I'm like, oh, I don't play Ellie. That's actually a really good point. So it's good to have different opinions. It's okay, internet. You can have different opinions on things. That's like how life works. It's good. But yeah, if you haven't already, go on the forums, throw your notes on there. They still got a week. Maybe they can squeak in some changes. Throw them on Reddit. That thread's, I think, on the 3rd page now. But it's always good to get content. People enthusiastic about build crafting. And yeah, I am Pseudo. This is Build Wars 2. Hope you've enjoyed it. I'm excited, as always, for the future of this game. I'm really excited for Bladesworn to have some good, if not, well implemented the changes coming down the pipeline. We'll see if it actually gets them. I'm still very skeptical that they're going to put tactical reload down to 40 seconds, but, maybe it's balanced. We'll see. Who knows? Who knows? Yeah. I hope you're having a wonderful time. I hope you have a wonderful night, day, whatever it is there, and cheers. I'll see you in Tyria.